Hey there. So I'm going to be putting together a couple videos about Kaycee's mod. They're going to be some tips. They're going to show you some of the cards, some of the challenges, kind of some of my progress on my second account towards the platinum. But let's start with the starter decks. Okay, so at the beginning for level 1 and 2, you have the vanilla deck, which is the Stoat, the Bullfrog, and the Wolf. If you're just getting used to Kaycee's mod, and if you only played through Act 1 for a little bit, a couple runs through it, you may find that this starter deck it doesn't give you a lot of ammo, a lot to work with, but you'll soon figure it out. Once you complete level 2, you'll unlock the triple sacrifice deck. That's the Black Goat, the Moose Buck, and the Mole, which not very helpful. It is a one sacrifice, that Mole, so we will be talking a lot about one sacrifice cards and how you wanna minimize the amount of them in your starter deck and as you're playing. Then we have the first of 2 insect decks. This is the Ant Queen and the Flying Ant, which you do unlock. I believe it's level 3 or 4. You get the Flying Ant and the Skunk. Again, another unhelpful card. Then you get the most powerful starter deck, the one that you're going to want to use as much as possible. Mantis God and 2 Ringworms. Those 2 Ringworms are a bit of a thorn in the side, but you're going to get a challenge further into leveling through Kaycee's mods that's going to give you a sigil that you put on your starter deck, and it's going to help you get rid of one of those Ringworms. And then, of course, if you don't know, you feed a Ringworm to the survivors at the fire, and you will kill them. But they will also eat your Ringworm, which is great, and that way it gets rid of it. Then you got the Waterbourne Deck. This one's a weird one, and we're going to take a look at some of the ins and outs of this deck. You get the Great Kraken, which is an interesting card, and 2 Kingfishers. Problem with this deck, they're waterborne, so they don't take any hits, and so the hits go directly to you. Also with the Great Kraken, on turn 2, it turns into one of the 3 tentacle cards, and you don't know which one it's going to turn into. The Mirror Tentacle is the most obnoxious one, and the Hand Tentacle and the Bell Tentacle are both quite useful. Then you unlock the Bone Deck once you get the Lammergeier and the Raccoon. I would say that was probably level 7, I believe. This one is a fun one to play with, but it can be a little touch and go. Not definitely a guaranteed win with this one, so you're going to have to work on the ins and outs of this one as well, and we'll take a look at it. And there's a lot of new cards you're going to unlock by the point you get to this starter deck. The Lammergeier, as I mentioned, is a card that gets its power number from the amount of bones you have at that current time. So if you're building a bone deck and some of those cards spend bones and some of those cards make bones, like the Raccoon and the Direwolf Pup here, which only makes 1 bone on its first turn, you could end up spending more bones than using for the Lammergeier. So it's, again, it's an interesting card, and it's fun to play with. And you might want to just toy around with it once you unlock it. Maybe not necessarily go for the next level, which I believe is level 8 at that point. But so the second to last deck that you unlock is what I like to call the Gek deck. It's 3 cards that do not need a sacrifice: the Rabbit, the Tadpole, which you just unlock then after level 9, and the Gek. The Gek is great. It has a power of 1 and a health of 1, and you can play it as many times as you can if you get the Unkillable sigil on it, which is definitely a must-do in that situation. The problem with this deck is it messes heavily with the fair hand mechanic, something that we're going to look at a little bit later. And you don't know if you're going to have any of these cards in your hand to start, and you don't know if you're going to be able to make it through any of the card battles. safely. So it's a little tricky. And then the final deck you unlock at level 11 is the Curious Egg deck, and the Curious Egg card itself gets unlocked at the same time. This is a really fun challenge of a card to use. You basically need to get all 5 tribes. Let's see if I can remember them offhand. I don't have them written down in front of me here. Canine, feathered, insect, hooved, and darn it, I always forget one, and I forgot one now. Reptiles. You get all 5 animals, and you get a card with every power level and every health level from 1 to 5. If you get all those 15 card requirements met, and you could do it with 5 cards, but you don't have to do it with 5 cards. If you have 5 cards of one of each tribe, 5 cards that have a power of 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and so on and so forth. And then you make that card evolve into its next evolution, which is really fun. We will take a lot of time looking at that, and this video is going to be basically building that deck, and then we're going to take a break and look at some other decks. And I have a full video on the Curious Egg deck and how to get through that. So let's take a look at the challenges here. I've been gabbing away, but the first 4 you unlock at the start of Kaycee's mod is no Angler's Hook, no Clover for a reroll. The pelts are a little bit more expensive, and there's only 2 items in your backpack instead of 3. They're each 5 points, and your first level is level 10. It's level 1. You have to get 10 points, so you just have to pick 2 of those. Ones I like to do are the totem boss battles, all totem battles, the aquafish, squirrelfish, I think they call them aqua squirrels when you're playing them, the annoying starters, which I like to play, especially when I use the Mantis God deck, the single candle there we already looked at, those, and I guess the one in the bottom, in the middle, we're going to look at that real quick, is the no boss rares. That's 20 points. And then tip scales. Oh, I'm sorry. No boss rares is 15 points. Tip scales is 20 challenge points. Tip scales is a higher level of a challenge, because basically you are starting every card battle 1 tooth behind your opponent. And so you need to make sure that you get 6 hits in order to make up for that extra tooth that is added to your side of the scale. And then no boss rares there. We're showing a 15-point challenge. Basically, after the 3 little boss fights you do, you get the chance to get some rare cards, but now you don't. And then we have the more difficult challenges and the Grizzly Boss challenge, and I will show that very heavily on how to deal with that in the Skullstorm video. I've recorded that Skullstorm video a couple weeks ago at this point, and put down the audio for it about a week ago, and it was a fun time. It went, it took some challenging battles, but it worked. Basically, if you've played Act 1 and you've played it too well, you may have seen a point where Leshy wipes the board clean and gives you 8 grizzly bears to fight, and it's basically meant as a kind of a Dark Souls FromSoft kind of, time to reset kind of thing. So it's meant for you to lose, basically. But by the time you get to past level 12 in Kaycee's mod, you should have everything you need, including 3 special items that you can have in your backpack that are going to really help you get through that. So I am just selecting 120 points worth so that we can complete level 12. I'm going to show you about, I want to say maybe 20 minutes of my level 12 run here, and then we're going to look at some past levels just to go through some of those starter decks, basically. Of course, the first deck, you have no choice. You have to get through it, and it's also a deck that you should be accustomed to using in this environment, because it's basically what you start Act 1 with, except this time the Stoat doesn't talk to you. So you may find it slightly difficult as you're starting the first few runs of Kaycee's mod. Just kind of getting used to how much more the mycologist and the woodcarver show up, some of the newer card events and different things that you can do. Once you get used to the small, slight differences of Kaycee's mod, you'll find that starter deck, the vanilla starter deck, you're going to find ways to make it work for you. And if it doesn't work, you're going to get plenty of opportunities to get a whole new mess of cards that you're going to have a lot of fun playing with. The triple blood sacrifice deck is, I would say, the second most powerful deck you could probably use, because you have a black goat to start out with, and then if you keep getting triple sacrifice cards to play, then basically in your first hand you could play something that could maybe get 4 plus damage on your first turn, and really help you get through some of these card battles quickly. The ant deck, the ant queen and flying ant deck, I had a lot of fun with, especially once you get like a good insect totem. You can really kind of use the advantage of the insect tribe once you're using, especially the ants, because the more ants you have, the more powerful every single ant is. So you'll find some really interesting ways to mess around with that and have fun with that. So we picked, so we're working with the Curious Egg here, and again, like I said, I have a full walkthrough on my other account. It's already been put together. It's already been, I already did the voiceover for it and everything. So that's going to show you a different path that I took to get the Curious Eggs for that account. But, here's the map. Here's basically what you can see. You see a wood carver on the left and a sacrifice on the right. And we're looking at our deck, trying to figure out, is it worth doing a sacrifice? Of course it's not. I picked the mantis and the mud turtle, again, because I want the numbers and I want the tribes. I want the insect and the reptile. I want the 1s and the 2s. And you're going to see me make some changes to that are going to cause minor ripples, but it does work out in the end in this account, and it also does in my main account with the video that I will be posting with this. So at this point I didn't really have a plan, and I decided Rampager is not a great sigil. It kind of messes up with, organizing your cards the way you want to. So we go for the insect head because I know I have a mantis. I know I'm going to make that work for myself. So most of these, we're going to ignore the fact that Curious Eggs here, because we're not going to be really worrying about that too much. And again, remember, this is level 12. So if you're starting out and you see the squirrels looking weird and all, some of the challenges I have here, this is definitely going to be a bit harder than normal, than what you're going to come up against if you're just starting out. But what you typically are going to get is the angler hook, if you didn't choose to remove that for a challenge, a pair of pliers, and usually a squirrel card. Those are the 3 things you're usually going to get in your backpack. If it's just 2, then it's going to be the fish hook, unless you decide to restrict it, and then I believe the pliers normally. There are 3 items in Kaycee's mod that you can unlock. I've already released a Master Trinketeer video showing me getting that on my main account, getting that trophy, and getting the final item. I'm going to show you the other 2 items here throughout this video, just so that you can see what they look like. But you're going to see a lot of them, there's a lot of videos that you've already seen in this. This is me showing you what I do quite often, and you should not feel guilty about doing it either. If you come to a point, because I'm working with the single candle challenge here, and if something goes wrong for me, I simply hit the option button and I exit out of the game, and I go back into the game by continuing the run. And that will put you before the last event that you just were in, and it will reload the card battle or the card event or whatever it is you did before you exited out. It will reload it and it will play out exactly as it did. You will have the same cards in your hand and the same cards will come down. So with that foreknowledge, you can play cards differently, you can use items differently, you can prepare for things, and you just kind of get yourself set up. So you see, by putting the mantis in the middle there, that little fight went a lot better. So we have two choices. We can go to the trapper, and then we have a backpack or a sacrifice. And all the way up we have a sacrifice level card event where you can pick between 1 sacrifice, 2 sacrifice, 3 sacrifice cards, or bone cards. And then the right, we have the prospector and then a wood carver. So we're going to go with the prospector more because I want the wood carver to create a insect totem, and maybe we'll get lucky and get a rare card, but we don't. We get a golden pelt, and we will use that to get a rare card later. So totems work really well if you're gonna stick a lot to one tribe, or if you know that the main card you're going to use is going to be of a particular tribe. This run, this rabbit sigil on this totem for the insects ends up working out so very well for me. I was so happy I did this. It really made the run even more fun, and it opened up the way to do a lot of extra things. Even though, right, with this deck, these 3 curious eggs, they're basically just extra sacrifice cards. They cost a bone, so you can't use them in your first turn. You'll have to sacrifice at least 1 squirrel before you do it. But with the curious eggs and the rabbits now that will show up every time you play an insect card, you can really do a lot more with whatever cards come your way. If you get a triple sacrifice card, you might be able to play it the first time you get it, you know? So also, you know, that mantis, even though it's only 1/1, is really doing good stuff for us. So 2 different kinds of cards events. There's 4 card events altogether. There is the tribe card event, which we definitely want to do for this particular deck because we're looking for different tribes. We need hooved and we need canine. I think we go with hooved. We do go with hooved for this one. Or rather, I look at this and I think I decide differently and back out. Okay, I take it. All right. And then the campfire. Okay, so the campfire was in Act 1, and we didn't have anything like that in Act 3. So the way that this works is basically the same way it worked in Act 1. You get to do any card you choose. It's either going to be a power upgrade or a health upgrade. The first time, it will upgrade it 1 power or 2 health the first time you do it. And then you have an option to do it a second time. The survivors there's like a 50-50 chance that the survivors will devour your card on the second turn. So it is very risky if your star card, and right now the mantis is definitely our star card, if they eat that card, it's gone. It's gone for good. Now what I like to do is I like to take a card that I don't care if I lose, and I like to do it twice to see if they eat it. And if they don't eat it, then I will back out and reload the event and then choose a card I want to upgrade as much as possible. We are going to get the Mantis up to level 3 during some of this capture, I believe. Definitely during this run we get it, but I don't know if the capture lasts long enough to show that. I'm pretty sure it does. But as I mentioned in the beginning of this video, and something that I go into pretty great detail in the Skullstorm video and probably the other Curious Egg video, is that you can really manipulate how that campfire event works. If you feed the survivors at that campfire a ringworm or an adder snake, both of which are kind of, well, unhealthy to eat, honestly, then if they, on the second time, if they devour it, the next time you visit a campfire event, those survivors will be gone, and you have a guaranteed, no risk, double upgrade every single time you visit a campfire from then on out. Very useful. Also, as I mentioned in the beginning, if you want to get rid of cards, especially the ringworm and the adder. I mean, the adder has Touch of Death, which is great, but it's 1/1. It's not very powerful. So, and again, I spent a lot of time looking at the Curious Eggs because those lights indicate we have 1, 2, 3 on health, we have 2 and 3 on power, and we have 4 of the 5 tribes. All we need is feathered at the moment. We have a golden pelt here, which we're going to use in a little bit of time to get a rare card. Just like the rest of the game, there is 3 levels of pelts: rabbit, wolf, and golden. I really like getting the wolf pelts because the wolf pelts are typically, there's the wise clock. I'll be showing you some video later on in this episode here about how to get the wise clock. That's one of the backpack items. But of course I forgot I was talking about, so I had to go back and check. So the pelts, what I was saying was, see, the Mantis is now power 3, so that's gonna help us get 9 hits right at the beginning of every card battle from now on. The wolf pelts are kind of interesting when you take them to the trader. You can get basic cards, usually sacrifice 1 and 2 and sacrifice 3 cards. But what's great about the wolf pelt cards that you can buy is they all have like extra sigils added to them, and blending sigils with certain cards, certain just cards that do certain things on their own, can really make some interesting and fun and powerful cards for your deck, and really give you kind of that edge that you're going to need. Something that I did say we were going to talk about, and I haven't brought it up, so I want to talk about it now, as the prospector is turning my cards into gold nuggets, is the fair hand mechanic. So I go into great detail about this in the Skullstorm video, the final run that gets me the platinum in my main account. But what the fair hand mechanic is basically when you have a set of cards in your deck, every single time you start a card battle, the rule is that you're going to need 1 no-cost card, usually a squirrel, and 1 card that requires 1 sacrifice. Right now, we only have 1 card that requires 1 sacrifice, and that is the Mantis. In Skullstorm and a lot of other runs, you'll see me use the Mantis God. That is also a single sacrifice card, and it can be extremely powerful. That is why, as I mentioned before, I like to pick that deck and then get rid of both of the other ringworms, because they are also single sacrifice. So if you start a deck, if you start a run of Kaycee's mod with one card that's powerful and requires one sacrifice, and you don't get any other single sacrifice cards, can guarantee that that card will be in your hand for the beginning of every card battle. And that's how you can really make that work for yourself. The problem is with decks like the Gek deck, where you have 3 no-cost cards to start out with, and the Bone deck gets a little kind of funky, but you start with a Raccoon, which is a single. So if you keep that Raccoon and you don't get any other single sacrifice cards, you should be okay. There's one card that gets in your deck, it could get in your deck, and that's the only card that I've seen that really messes with the fair hand mechanic. I will talk a little bit more about that when we come to it. Looking at the videos I have here and the capture, we should be coming upon it in about probably 5 to 8 minutes from now, I think. I'm guessing, but I imagine it's going to show up soon. And it's just one card, and you don't even have to pick it if you don't want to, but we'll talk about that. So for this run, I did pick the rares, the boss rares, and I'm going to go with the Strange Larva because it has a health of 3. Strange Larva is a fun card. It evolves like a Pokemon, honestly. It evolves, and it'll be pretty much worthless at the beginning, and then it will be like a pupa in the second stage. In the third stage, it is a Mothman, and it attacks with a power of 7, I think. So really cool. Okay, so we're going to start looking at some of the other decks and a couple of the extra tips. We're going to come back to that Curious Egg deck in another video, but I wanted to kind of talk through some of the basics of the mod. So here is another totem plus 2 cards that this beehive here, I think I purchased with a wolf pelt. It has Unkillable and Fledgling, I think. And being a beehive, it will give me a bee if I need it. But the important thing is it's 1 sacrifice, and it has the sigil of triple sacrifice on it. So I'm able to sacrifice the Ouroboros over and over and over again using the beehive. And what that does is, after a little bit of time, and I probably could have sped this up, but it gives me a chance to catch my breath and maybe talk about a few other things while we're looking at it. But basically, this is the same thing that you could have done during Act 1, something that you could do in Act 2 for the Devil's Plate trophy if you really wanted to, and of course you can do it in Kaycee's mod. The Ouroboros only shows up as a rare reward once every run, I do believe. It is very rare. It's probably one of the most rare cards, next to the Urayuli, probably Pelt Lice, and the Lammergeier seems to be less rare, because I've definitely seen the Lammergeier show up a lot, but you don't unlock it until like level 7, so you might not see it a ton if you're whisking through these last 4 levels, but you know. But anyway, so I just wanted to show this. I don't remember. I think this is actually level 4. You are going to see me get the first of 3 trophies that are awarded once you complete certain levels. Level 4, level 8, and level 12 all give you trophies. I don't have their names in front of me, so we will be seeing it in just a minute here. But yeah, I kind of thought, well, let's just power up the Ouroboros a little bit more so that we don't have to do this too many times. I think I go for 10 and I pretty much leave it there, thinking, okay, 4 hits and we should be done. Yeah, and we go with that. So by the point, once you get to the moon in these Kaycee's mod runs, it's pretty much, you know, easy street. You know, you've done all the hard work and you can pretty much breathe easy. I've never been defeated by the moon in Kaycee's mod. Usually by that point you are powered up and you've got a lot of things in your arsenal. And I think it does go into starvation. I believe the power level of the moon goes up by 1 every turn if necessary. You know, if you go into starvation, the moon will start getting more powerful as time goes on. So you don't want to run out of cards then. So keep that in mind, because you have 3 rounds you have to fight through. And if you have a small deck, you know, that's part of the fair hand mechanic, is keeping your deck kind of tight and, you know, economical but resourceful. And so this is one of the situations where a smaller deck, just so you can use the same cards every battle, could end up meaning that you get there's Taunting challenge for level 4, could mean that you get less cards in your hand and then go into starvation quicker. We cut out the log entry, and you see for level 4 we get the Direwolf and the Direwolf Pup, and then we unlock no boss rares. That was level 4 there. I believe we're going into, I guess this is level 5. I guess this is the same capture here, even though it was cut a little bit. And this is basically to show you a little bit of extra footage of the Master Trinketeer. I might want to cut here so I'm not wasting too much of your time visually. But we're just picking out our 50 points for level 5. This is the triple sacrifice deck. And I'm going back here and I'm looking at the oil painting. Again, this is for Master Trinketeer. A little extra information here. The Direwolf on the left hand slot, and I believe the Raven was on the right hand slot. This one's kind of interesting because I used 2 cards that aren't the Direwolf and the Raven, and they eventually evolve into both those cards. It's the Direwolf Pup and the Raven's Egg. And the game doesn't do what its typical thunk and like shake the screen until the very end of the battle to signify that I actually unlocked the item. But that was me picking up, I believe, was that the Direwolf Pup? I'd have to go back and watch, and eventually I get the Raven's Egg through, I think, a boss reward, the no boss rares. This is me putting down the Direwolf Pup and then the Raven's Egg, you'll see in a minute here. So this is just extra content that I wanted to put in here because when I made the Master Trinketeer on my main account, I realized I didn't have footage of me unlocking the first 2 items, the Magickal Bleach and the Wise Clock. Magickal Bleach is necessary to get the Bad Moon trophy, which is to defeat Leshy at the end of Kaycee's mod without killing the moon. Pretty simple to do if you have two things. If you have the Magickal Bleach and you have cards that have Airborne, then you can hit Leshy directly once you remove the sigils on the moon card. But if you don't have both those things, you're gonna probably have to kill the moon, and you're not gonna get the Bad Moon trophy. So there, we already have Direwolf and Raven here. But if you noticed, there didn't really seem to be any of announcement of anything being unlocked. And if you listen towards the end of the battle, you might hear it right about there. Oh wait, maybe it's not even until the actual end of the boss battle. I might be completely mistaken. But it doesn't take much more time. We have 4 pelts. We're going to buy all 4 of the middle row. And then our Direwolf and Raven are going to give us 7 hits, which should be enough. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Not 7, 6. Oh, we're going to put more cards down. No, we can't. Well, we can afford 1 at least. Hand Tentacle is going to give us 3 more points because there's 3 more cards in our hand. And I believe there was a clang there. We're going to pick our reward. Of course, we're using the no boss rares. Leshy says, oh, wait a minute, these aren't rare cards. So another tip, every time the map loads up, if you don't like the way it looks, back out, reload the game, and you'll get a whole new map. There's the Magickal Bleach that we just unlocked. And now you get the first Magickal Bleach right away, and then it will be entered into the inventory of your backpack randomly from here on out. So again, you know, some of this video is all over the place. I did want to show the Ouroboros, which again is just a basic game tip, and the Master Trinketeer information. But now we're looking at our actual starter decks here. We're looking at the Waterbourne Deck with the Great Kraken and the Kingfishers. I am going to show you the oil painting in this one because we are going to unlock the Wise Clock here. I believe what we needed for this one was the Great White and the Cockroach, which we actually have in our hands right now. I don't remember if I get it in this battle or if I back out, look at the oil painting, and then get it. So with this deck, again, you get the Great Kraken and the Kingfishers. They're all waterborne. The problem with waterborns are that they don't offer any defense. They will hit with whatever number they're going to hit with, and then they flip over and they don't take the opponent's hits. You take them directly, which again will change the scale and point it towards you, and that's not a good thing. The Great Kraken itself is a pretty low-level card to begin with, and then it turns into one of the 3 tentacle cards. Mirror Tentacle is an interesting card that is fun to play around with. If you have two tentacles, 2 mirror tentacles, or if you're up against a really heavy hitter, you can hit them with the same amount that they would hit you with, and hopefully take them out. But if you're up against something like a rabbit, then your hand tentacle card, your mirror tentacle card is going to be worthless. It's literally just going to sit there like it is right now. The hand tentacle is great, as we saw earlier in the video, if you have, because it takes its power level from how many cards are in your deck, or in your hand, not in your deck, in your hand. Looks like we didn't get the wise clock there, so we must be unlocking it soon enough. The third tentacle card is the Bell Tentacle, and the reason I play the Great Kraken in the leftmost slot is because the Bell Tentacle has a power level of 4 if it's in the left slot, a power level of 3 if it's in the slot next to that, to the right, slot 2. There's the Magickal Bleach. It has a power level of 2 if it's in slot 3, and a power level of 1 if it's in slot 4, the rightmost level. So there we looked at the oil painting, and it was Great White and Cockroach, and we're going to get it in this run. So, tips on what to do with this deck. I don't love the Kingfishers, but if you can get them powered up, they're waterborne and airborne at the same time, so they can hit your opponent directly as long as you're not up against a and I've forgotten what the sigil's called, the shield against airborne. Darn it, I should have looked it up. Oh well. Well, you know what it is. It's the bullfrog has it, a bunch of other cards have it. It's an airborne symbol and a shield. It's pretty self-explanatory what it does. So you could just have 3 single sacrifice cards and power them all up, possibly, and then just keep using those 3 cards. But I would suggest getting rid of the Kingfishers, or maybe even getting rid of the Kraken, because in the end, it is a little undependable. You know, if you get the mirror tentacle like we did here, or if you get the hand tentacle and you don't have any cards in your hand, you know, you're SOL, basically. We're getting so close here to losing. I wouldn't be surprised if this was a losing fight and I restart it, but I'm using some items and maybe it'll work out in the end. You can start with your starter deck. You don't necessarily have to win against Leshy with those 3 cards in your deck. If as you're playing, you're finding that the entire starter deck is worthless to you, you can get rid of them through sacrifices, through the Bone Lord sacrifices, and through feeding them to the campfire survivors. It's not a guarantee that they're going to eat the card that you give them, though, so you always have to be careful. Oh, here we are. We probably just unlocked it. I didn't notice any pause, and of course I can't hear the audio of the capture here. The Cuckoo is a phenomenal card, and I'll probably be saying this a couple more times, but the important thing about the Cuckoo is a bird, so it has airborne as one of its sigils. The Cuckoo produces a cracked egg that goes in front of it into the middle row there, and because of its airborne nature, it can hit your opponent directly and has a barrier. There's the wise clock. It has a barrier card in front of it. If you take that sigil, that cracked egg sigil, and you put it on another card that's not airborne, it is an absolute worthless and bad idea. And I did that for a lot of my runs here, with the raccoon especially, and I had a full run with a raccoon that had the cracked egg as a sigil, and it ended up being worthless. I got the ringworm here, so I'm going to restart and do the card vent again. Nothing wrong with doing that. Definitely puts you in a better position because you know what you're dealing with. You can go through this event and you can see what's behind each of these tribe cards and keep reloading it until you get the one that you want the best. Wolf is always good though. You really can't miss out with Wolf. Wolf is always good. And the backpack, especially if your backpack's full, nothing wrong with getting another pack rat. So a minor edit here, just a little bit further in this Waterbourne run here. I wanted to show you a very special card that's going to show up here. So it's unlocked pretty early in Kaycee's run. I think it's level 1 or 2. You're going to unlock a card that is listed as Mole Man ? And that is an imposter card known as the Ijiraq, and here he is. So the thing about the Ijiraq is you won't know you have him unless you use a really keen eye. When you're selecting cards from card events and rewards after boss battles, look out for cards that have anything red in them. Usually the eyes of the animal will be red, or if they don't have eyes, or maybe if they do, but they have other prominent areas that are red in color, that you take that card, and then every time you look at your deck, one of your cards will be copied. So there will be 2 versions of a random card that you have there already in your deck. You'll never see the Ijiraq until you actually play it. So the biggest problem with the Ijiraq is with the fair hand mechanic, it messes it up completely. In case you didn't notice, the Ijiraq has a power of 4, and I think it has a health of 1, but its sigil is a little circle that's crossed out. Basically, and you see it here as the golden pelt in the top middle. It's reddish in color. So its sigil is basically, if the card is opposing it, it will not attack it. It cannot attack it, is basically how the language refers to the sigil. So the Ijiraq is great because it hits with a power of 4 and it will not be attacked. But as I said, it messes a little bit with the fair hand mechanic, and I had 2 runs that were completely derailed because I would get 3 cards in my hand plus the squirrel, and they were all 2 or 3 sacrifice cards. There was not a single sacrifice card in my deck, in my hand. So I could not actually play any cards in my first turn. I had to wait until I could get a second squirrel and then play the 2 sacrifice card. And I believe the Ijiraq was hiding behind a 3 sacrifice card. So I couldn't get to the card until I was nearly dead, until I was nearly had lost the card battle. And I got the Ijiraq, and I mean, I had to try it a couple times, but eventually I found my way out of it. But it's kind of a pain in the butt, you know? Using that Ijiraq card, it's very temperamental, it's very unsafe, and you know, keep it in mind. You know, you can't pick that card and power it up. So you get what you get with the Ijiraq. Which, you know, again, it's kind of funny. I'm laughing because you don't know what you get, because you don't realize it is what it is. It doesn't always show up with something red in it every time you're looking at it. The rule of thumb is, if you are looking at your hand and there are 2 versions of a card that you know you only have 1 copy of, the first one in your hand is the Ijiraq. So keep that in mind, because it will make the copy first and then it'll give you your actual card second. But it's not always constant. It's not always a guarantee that you're going to see both those versions in there. But if you ever do, if there's 2 copies of the same card and you know you only have 1 copy of it, the first copy is the Ijiraq. So go ahead and play it. Use it if you can. But I would say if you have the chance to pick it or not pick it, you might want to stay away from it for certain runs if you know that you're going to need to really lean into the fair hand mechanic. So to close out this video, we are going to just show the Master Trinketeer trophy here. We need to get a River Otter on the leftmost slot and Kingfisher on the rightmost slot, and we'll be getting it in this card battle here. There's the River Otter. You can see the Wise Clock sitting there. I didn't really talk about it too much in this video, and I already have the Master Trinketeer video out on YouTube, so you can watch that, but this at least shows you me getting those two items. The Wise Clock revolves all the cards in the middle row and your row over by 1 clockwise. So right now the wolf, if I would use the Wise Clock, the wolf would move up into the middle slot above where it is right now, and it would actually attack me, which is not something I would want. Here we're putting the River Otter down somehow. How am I doing that? Oh, because it's a 1 sacrifice. There you go. There was the little thud. We unlocked the final item, which is called the Magpie's Glass. It works the same way the Magpie card works. It allows you to pick any card in your deck and put it in your hand. Wise Clock is essential for the All Grizzly challenge for 50 points, which is the last challenge you unlock in level 12, and then you unlock, after that, you unlock the secret final boss once you finish level 12, and we will be looking at that in the next video, along with the Bone Deck and the Curious Egg Deck and the Gek Deck as well. Oh, we have 2 Wise Clocks there. Very nice. Because we used the Pack Rat, I believe. So, this is part 1. Stay tuned for part 2, which should be coming out very soon, where we take a look at those last 3 decks. So basically, this is kind of the beginning of a start-finish guide. I've shown you a couple of the different decks. The ones that I didn't show are pretty self-explanatory, are pretty simple to use. So hopefully this was enough information for you, combined with everything else we already have on the site. And hope this helped. Take care.